We are here live at the NAPE Expo 2025, and there's no better way to really know what's going on than to have true energy operating E&P experts to really dive in to 2025 and 2026. We talk to one of those individuals next on this episode of The Crude Truth.
In 1901, at Spindletop Hill near Beaumont, the future of Texas changed dramatically as, like a fountain of fortune, thousands of barrels of oil burst from the earth towards the sky. Soon, Detroit would be cranking out Model Ts by the millions, and America was on the move, thanks to the black gold being produced in Texas. Now, more than a century later, the vehicles are different, but nothing else has truly changed. Sure, there may be many other alternative energy sources like wind and solar and electric. But let's be honest, America depends on oil and entrepreneurs. And if the USA is truly going to be independent, it has to know the crude truth.
This episode is brought to you by LFS Chemistry. We are committed to being good stewards of the environment. We are providing the tools so you can be too. NAPE Expo, where deals happen. Air Compressor Solutions. When everything is on the line, Air Compressor Solutions is the dependable choice to keep commercial business powered up. Sandstone Group. Exec Crew. Elevate your network, elevate your knowledge. Texas Star Alliance. Pecos Country Operating. Fueling our future.
Well, make no doubt about it, as we continue a successful day here at NAPE 2025, this afternoon I have just the opportunity to visit with somebody that really knows what's going on, and you don't know what's going on unless you sign checks, in my opinion, and you really understand the ins and outs of a P&L statement and what it really means to produce oil and what cost you're really making a barrel. Today, my guest is somebody, obviously you can see him without any introduction, George Whitman, president of Black Mountain Oil and Gas. How are you?
I'm good. I appreciate you having me on, Ray.
Oh my gosh, I cannot thank you enough. When I had the opportunity, when Allison was like, hey, I'd love to get George on, because we had a chance to meet a couple months ago at a good friend of mine, JP's Connection Crew Dinners, and our conversation was awesome right there. And I was like, gotta have you on. And, as you know, I'm an operator, but definitely not at the level that Black Mountain is. And we always joke about that. But you guys are literally setting the example, paving the way, and doing amazing things over there right now. And y'all been doing that now on many different levels, not just oil and gas. Y'all got sand, y'all got all these other things. And as I just continue to gush over all of y'all, how are you doing?
I think we're doing good. Probably to give a little background here, Black Mountain's not just oil and gas. Founded it in 2007 with the idea of being entrepreneurial across the entire energy space. So that's why we've done kind of upstream is probably more of the DNA of the company, but currently we also have a lot of energy transition investment. So energy storage is doing really well, kind of the grid batteries.
Yes.
We've got a big lithium project in East Texas where we've been leasing and building a position there to do lithium brine extraction. And then also looking at some of the other emerging technologies where we can use natural gas for power for a lot of different applications. So kind of across the spectrum. I'm focused solely on Black Mountain Oil and Gas 3. So we're operating in South Texas and just closed our new fund for Northern Delaware. So we'll be getting back in there.
Okay.
Pretty quickly.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought it up that you guys are doing more than just oil and gas. And the reason why is because you said entrepreneurial. Oil and gas is always giving back or always doing things to just make our industry better and make others' lives better in different industry spaces. And, you guys are working on that East Texas brine. That's no joke over there. And I know that's not really where you're at, but that's really no joke what's going on over there, is it?
Yeah, what we found is really the same skills that we use in oil and gas as far as the business development and the land ground game. That applies across a lot of these different things. So like getting sites for the grid scale batteries or for data centers or any kind of things like that. That's a similar land game to getting leases. And the same thing applies to lithium or extracting any other kind of resource. So, we've done some mining and some other things, but I'm just trying to be nimble, trying to identify emerging trends and get out in front of them and apply the skills that we've learned through the oil and gas to a lot of different space.
Well, as you can tell for our listeners out there, as you can tell, George has no idea what else is going on in any other spaces other than oil and gas. George is definitely one of the guys that's a leader in this industry. George, for those out there that don't know you, can we get a little bit of background on you and your journey?
Yeah, sure. I can give a little background. So, started in 1999 in the business. Grew up north. I went to Cornell University, very kind of anti-oil and gas school. So not too many of us in the business, but I was a mechanical engineer and got recruited by Schlumberger. They had really great recruiting. It's kind of very similar to the Navy SEALs recruiting, like people jumping out of helicopters and things like that. So thought that looked cool when I was young, and it got into Schlumberger for a few years, and then hired on with EOG in 2005 when they were kicking off the Barnett as a drilling engineer. So saw pretty much start to finish of the Barnett, and then moved to the Eagle Ford when we were first delineating that, trying to figure out how to get oil out of shale. So spent 5 or 6 years there, and then went to Permian, working in the Delaware as completions manager for EOG. And then in 2019, got in touch with Red, and he was, at that time had done a lot of mineral stuff, had done some lease and flip type deals, but really wanted to build a competent operating team. So we put together a really good team from pretty much pulled from all the large independents, some really experienced guys. So I've got 15 people on the technical team, and we're just looking to acquire assets and operate them more long term. We're not doing the lease and flip game anymore as much.
Well, that legacy can go a long way. And, like when we're doing stuff and people ask us, well, how long does a normal well last? We go, well, 25 years, because the average well is 20 to 30 years.
Right.
And that can produce oil. We just got done plugging one, George, that was drilled in 1958, produced oil until 1988, and then was an injection well up until last year.
Yeah.
And so it's still serving a purpose. For 60 years, it served a purpose in the oil and gas.
That's amazing. I hope we can get that much out of our wells. I'm not sure if we will.
Well, tell me, because you guys have done very well. There's no ands and buts about it. Y'all are already on Block Mountain 3, and y'all been doing this in the Eagle Ford.
Yeah, so the latest iteration, we had the goal of acquiring a decent size asset and optimizing it. That's pretty typical strategy these days. So we bought the Catarina Ranch out of the Mesquite bankruptcy, the old Sanchez asset, and then Shell had it before them. Most famous for Shell paying $1 billion in lease bonus for this 106,000 acre ranch. We think it was the biggest lease bonus ever paid for anything. But anyway, we acquired that. There's about 400 something Eagle Ford wells, and then just, the basic things you do to an asset. So getting the LOE down, we got all the midstream renegotiated, and now we're starting to develop the Austin Chalk. So just got a couple wells in the ground that we'll be fracking this spring, and continuing to try to bolt on sort of strategically around that asset as we can. It's been competitive.
Well, yes, you've been competitive, but again, and it probably goes, again, the team of you and Red is amazing. But when you go look at not your track record, but let's just take the Eagle Ford track record since 2019. There's not a lot of winners out there in some degree, if you know, right?
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
And so you guys are definitely on that opposite side. So it's like, what do you feel like has been the key for y'all during that time that you can share, on that end,
I think I give a ton of production credit to our team there. The production guys have done an awesome job of just stabilizing the decline, being really aggressive in trying to do rigless interventions everywhere we could. That under the previous ownership, there was a tremendous amount of workover cost, and they've reduced that to almost nothing just by figuring out how to do it more creatively with wireline or gas cycling or intermitting the well, just various other strategies. So I'm really good there. And then just trying to be commercial with the midstream. This was kind of like a strange situation where Sanchez owned the upstream and the midstream, and they had kind of concentrated all the profit margin on the midstream side. So there were some really onerous contracts. We had to work on some of that to get to where we can develop. And, it's really just blocking and tackling type stuff. I don't think there's anything really like a secret sauce, but just buying the asset right in the first place at a fair price, and then just having a team that knows how to optimize and develop.
Right. Because like in 2020 during COVID, we grew 3x just because, you had so many people that wanted to get out of the industry when it was really when people started to get those $25 checks, meaning that when, because oil had dropped to 25, about the monthly average, give or take, and they didn't really start to receive those checks till June, July. And so from basically July to the end of the year, we had a good chance to kind of buy some good assets.
Yeah.
Then, of course, same thing. lower those lease operating expenses. And same thing, you kind of see some of these where operators, and again, I'm not saying, so it's like, why are the operators getting paid so much and then the E&Ps over here only getting this, right? And it's like, we need to bring that down. And, because as an operator, we treat it, it's like a pass-through. It's like, let the E&P let us make what we're making over here, and then we can do the other, And so I just think it's so cool what you guys have been able to do. And then what made y'all want to jump back into the Northern Delaware?
Well, that's been the focus area of the company throughout the years. So
Okay.
that probably the most famous deal Black Mountain's done was aggregating a bunch of Lee and Eddy County acreage back in 2015 and 16, and then selling it to Marathon for really good return.
Lots and lots of American dollars.
Yeah, and then more recently, it's been kind of tough to get funding for that type of lease play. The private equity guys just aren't really doing it. They're more focused on discount PDP and maybe trying to get some drilling locations, but they're not doing too much leasing because there's a lot of unsuccessful leasing around the fringes of the basins, kind of in like 2017, 18, and a lot of people got burned. But we understand how to play the game up there in New Mexico, and I think we know where there's some good rock that hasn't really been fully appreciated yet. So the idea there is just aggregate some positions and start building again for the third time out there.
George, I kind of want to switch it up a little bit and talk about NAPE. We're here at NAPE this year. You and your team is here. Can you just tell me what your thoughts are so far on NAPE as we're kind of getting towards the end of the first day and everything going on?
Yeah, it's been really just good to connect with a lot of people. I've found a bunch of our Eagleford neighbors and been able to just talk about some issues that we have around the ranch, trying to share data. A lot of the stuff we try to do now is try to optimize lateral links. So we may be doing pooling and communitizing of different areas to try to get just a more efficient development pattern. So we've been talking to a lot of guys about that. It's just really efficient to get a bunch of people in one place.
Yeah.
We have had quite a bit of interest in our South Texas assets, seem maybe a little more from the international players or some of the integrated energy companies, not so much the traditional oil and gas focused upstream companies.
Okay.
We've had some ones we haven't seen before coming by. We're also trying to market our Canning Basin asset, which is a big basin center gas play in Australia that we acquired about 5 years ago. We got about 1.5 million acres over there, so it's kind of almost on the same scale as like an Eagleford or Permian. So we have all the lease rights, and we got an export exemption. We got some of the EPA permitting, and just kind of we got seismic permitting done and ready to move to the next kind of phase of appraisal and development there. But it's probably something that needs to be a major operator or an NOC. It's not really something that we can do with the resources and the team that we have. So we do have that one on sale and hoping to get some interest here. But anybody that's trying to get LNG into Asia, I think would be interested in that kind of asset.
Oh, wow, man. I had somebody call me up the other day and ask me if I wanted or knew anybody that wanted to buy an LNG exporting permit. And a good friend of mine, I said, hey, man, you know anything about it? He goes, usually when you sell one of those, you got a whole lot of other stuff with it. I was like, oh, okay. And that was above my pay grade. Again, Black Mountain, there's no doubt about it. You guys are influential. Y'all guys know what's going on. Y'all have y'all's ear to the ground. What are you seeing out there as far as, again, drill, baby, drill, and this new Trump administration?
Yeah, I think probably what that means to Trump, and I don't know him personally, of course, but I think he views cheap energy as really stimulating the economy and being necessary for some of his other policy goals, like reshoring manufacturing and industry and trying to build out data centers and be a leader in AI. Those are things that are going to need a lot of power, and the grid isn't necessarily positioned for that. So we are going to need some decentralized power that most likely comes from natural gas. So I think that's a part of it, on cheaper oil prices, just overall stimulating the economy. And then on the gas side, ramping up LNG exports and being able to support some more heavy industry here in the United States. I think the issue that he's going to run into with this agenda is we're just kind of out of the core inventory that you can drill at cheap prices. So I think we kind of did during his first term in 2018, we had $75 or $80 oil and we drilled like crazy, and we just drilled ourselves into $50 oil very quickly.
Yes, we did.
And I don't think that's going to happen again because just the discipline that we're seeing on the E&P side, they're not going to outspend cash flow, and they're focused on dividends and balance sheet and not just growth for the sake of growth anymore. So I think it's going to be really challenging to grow production. The core inventory has kind of been blocked up by the Exxons and EOGs and the big players. And then the fringe inventory doesn't really work under $70 oil. So
True.
we can't really ramp up 3 million barrels like what they've been talking about unless oil prices are higher. So it'll be interesting to see if maybe Trump can kind of broadly stimulate the economy through deregulation. And if demand comes up as a result, then maybe the pricing is supportive and we can drill aggressively like he wants to.
So let's say hypothetically that they're having a meeting right now about that in Washington, D.C. What do you think they would be talking about? Like if Trump all of a sudden said, hey, I need you to come. We need to talk oil and gas.
Yeah.
What would you think that's about?
I think Trump's a guy that listens to a lot of different voices and then he forms his opinion and then he's pretty opinionated once it's been formed. And that's kind of what he's going to do. I think he wants probably to hear from the operators what the obstacles are to more drilling. And a lot of that is just going to be the price needs to be high enough to incentivize it. And then the other thing I think they're probably looking to reform pretty aggressively is the bureaucracy and the regulatory process, because right now, when we go in New Mexico to get a drilling permit, it's about a 12 to 14 month process on BLM land. Whereas in Texas, we can get that same exact permit in 3 days. And it's all there's no reason for it to take that long and to be that inefficient. And it's holding back development on federal land. So I'm hoping that we get some focus on that out of the Trump administration.
I'm glad you brought up pricing. Sometimes when I'm talking to individuals, prices did go up in 2022 to about $100 for a couple of months. Service costs all went up.
Yeah.
When prices went down, service costs did not go down.
Yeah, there was definitely a lagging effect of 6 or 7 months. I think probably April, May of last year, they finally started coming down. Probably casing was the biggest thing because they can't just pick up shifts or lay off shifts at these factories very easy. So casing supply is a little bit inelastic. So the price goes way up when it's tight and it goes way down when they got a surplus.
I think
across the board, rigs, frac fleets, everything got pretty crazy for a while, but we're seeing it as probably back to like pre-COVID pricing now, some of the bids we're getting.
Nice. And y'all got some great projects like we kind of discussed in the beginning lined up. George, if there's something that you would like to see in the future from this administration and maybe allow y'all to be a little bit more, loose in your drilling, what is something out there that you would like to see if you could tell that?
Yeah, I think really the feds probably have limited amount of control over the entire drilling business because we have so much private land in the U.S. But fixing the Fed permitting process and then just fast tracking LNG export are probably the two biggest things.
Man, you hit that dead on. If we can do more of the LNG, it's like we always talk about. We are the Saudi Arabia of LNG.
Yeah, we definitely have a lot, but then there's also, UAE has a ton that's untapped.
Yes.
Qatar, there's some discoveries off Africa.
Yeah.
More conventional stuff. So that I think if we don't get it done quickly, we're going to be too late to where other people have taken it over, and there's only so much demand. Yeah. So we had about a 3 or 4 year pause there and nothing getting approved, and it's kind of given some other people the opportunity to jump in front of us, but hopefully we can get back on track with that and
I hope so.
Still get some things done.
I think it'd be great. So, well, George, again, I cannot thank you enough for doing this and visiting with us and sharing a little bit more insight because, I think, again, people like, you are somebody that knows that you are touching every single part of the aspect of what you're working on. And I just think that is amazing. So there's a reason why y'all are on Black Mountain number 3. So
yeah, well, hopefully we'll get on to some more after that. We're all kind of long-term industry guys and have quite a bit of career left, so we'll keep doing it for a while and always open for business. So
let's do it. Well, George, I really appreciate it.
All right,
and everybody, thank y'all so much, and we'll see you again on another episode of The Crude Truth.
Okay, see you guys.
Again, The Crude Truth would like to thank today's sponsors: LFS Chemistry, NAPE Expo, Air Compressor Solutions, Sandstone Group, Exec Crew, Texas Star Alliance, Pecos Country Operating, and Real News Communication Network.
The easiest way to start your own podcast and TV show? Real News Communications Network. Stand out from your competition. Produce streams of high-quality social media content. Become a thought leader in your industry. With RNCN,